In this video, I'm going to explain to you what the BRRRR method is. BRRRR stands for buy, rehab, rent, refinance, repeat. The basic principles of the BRRRR method is that you buy a property that is in need of repair, you rehab it, and the key is that the value of the home must increase greater than the cost of the repairs. You then rent the property out after the house has been renovated, you refinance it, and then you repeat. So now let's look at an example. We're going to assume that the purchase of this example home is $100,000 and that you're able to get a mortgage with a 75% loan to value, which is typical for investment properties. In other words, you'll need a $25,000 down payment and the mortgage will be for $75,000. After you've purchased the property, you're then going to renovate the property. And in this example, we're going to assume that the renovation costs $50,000. And we're also going to assume that the renovation is paid for in cash. There's certainly other options you can use to pay for the renovation. There are financing options. You could use a line of credit. But for this example, we're going to assume that the renovation is done in cash. And that's going to increase your cash outlay from the $25,000 down payment to $75,000 with the renovation. Your loan amount is still $75,000. Your total investment is now $150,000. $75,000 in cash and $75,000 that was financed. After the property is renovated, you're going to rent that property out to a tenant, and your total investment at this point is $150,000, and we're going to assume that you can rent this property out for $1,500 a month. Once it's rented, you're then able to refinance it, and this is how you cash out. Now, when you had the first mortgage, the property value was only $100,000. You had to put $25,000 down, and $75,000 was financed, so $100,000 in total went to the seller. One thing that's confusing for some people is understanding a refinance. So it's not as if you're taking a second mortgage on the property. The refinance actually replaces the first loan. In order to do a cash out refinance, you need to recoup your $25,000 down payment. You need to pay back the $75,000 loan, and you need to also recoup the $50,000 that you paid for the renovation. That's a total of $150,000, and that's how much it would take to fully complete a cash out refinance. However, as I mentioned at the beginning, the key to the renovation is that you're increasing the value of the home by more than the amount of the renovation. And so for this example, we're assuming that the house is now worth $200,000, even though you've only invested $150,000 in the house. This is the same way people flip properties. The same principles apply, except instead of selling the property, you're going to be renting it out. And now that you have a $200,000 house, to get a new mortgage or to refinance your existing mortgage at a 75% loan to value, you would need a $50,000 down payment or $50,000 in equity in the house. 75% of $200,000 is $150,000. So you can now get a loan for $150,000, which is the exact amount you invested into the property and the amount required to complete a cash out refinance. You're able to do this because you already have $50,000 in equity in the property that you've built in through the renovation, so you no longer need a down payment. So now let's take a look at the difference between the BRRRR method and a traditional purchase. The main difference is that in the BRRRR method, you have $0 out of pocket at the end, and you now have a mortgage for $150,000. Versus in a traditional purchase, you will still have $75,000 out of pocket, and your loan amount will be $75,000. So in both scenarios, your total investment is $150,000, but in the traditional purchase, you need half of that in cash. In both scenarios, the rental income is going to be the same at $1,500 a month, but the monthly cost of that is going to be different because in the BRRRR method, you have a loan amount for $150,000 a month, And with a traditional purchase, you have a loan amount of only $75,000 a month. Thus, your monthly cost to pay back your loan is going to be significantly higher with the BRRRR method. In this scenario, I assumed a 4% interest rate, 1% taxes per year, and $1,000 in insurance a year to get to a monthly income number of $534 a month using the BRRRR method and $892 a month using the traditional method. Despite the fact that you're getting about $360 a month additional income using the traditional method, keep in mind that that requires $75,000 out of pocket. The biggest advantage to using the BRRRR method is that you don't have any money out of pocket at the end of this. Assume you only have $75,000 to use to purchase properties. If you were to spend all $75,000 on one property, you only have one house. However, if you use the BRRRR method, at the end you have $0 out of pocket. You could repeat this over and over again and buy theoretically an infinite number of houses. This is the last R, repeat, and that's the tremendous advantage of the BRRRR method.